Okay, Carl, great to see you again.
Thank you. You too.
Just tell us who you are, your position in the company, please.
Carl Garraffo, Chief Human Resources Officer for Lennar Corporation.
Awesome. So we're doing a leadership series, interviews with executives, and we're also doing, by the way, I don't know if I told you, we started doing videos of young people, elementary school, middle school, asking them the same questions and seeing what the comparison of answers are.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, it's funny, believe me. So, yeah, this is all about leadership. So what I'd like to know is what's your perspective or your definition of leadership?
Leadership, boy, we can go in 12 different directions on this, but when I do leadership development, my focus on leadership development zones in on what I refer to as the qualities of emotional intelligence and understanding how emotional intelligence capabilities and competencies influence the way leaders work and operate, think, and behave. So to me, definition of leadership is getting people to follow. How do you get people to follow? And the answer lies in, I think, the ability to influence and persuade people to do things a certain way, and you do that with certain emotional intelligence competencies.
Um, we have all had influencers, as I call them, in our lives. Is there one influencer or a couple that have really impacted your career and your life?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there's actually one on each side of the fence. There's one that I consider to be my mentor, and then there's one who I looked at as the perfect example of what I never want to be as a leader. And I'll leave names out of it. But my mentor was a guy that I worked with for many, many years when I worked at Arthur Andersen. And he taught me how to navigate politics, taught me how to understand the way people think. He was a rational, pragmatic guy. He was funny as he could be, and he infused humor into everything he did. And it was the perfect guy to latch my wagon onto because I felt that he possessed the skills that I wanted to possess as I was kind of growing as a professional. On the other side of the equation, I worked for a guy who was the antithesis of that, and frankly was so disconnected from people, disengaged from the way people think, had zero emotional intelligence skills, was not self-aware, was not in any position to be able to properly lead people other than through his influence, through his position. So I felt that I learned more sometimes from the guy who didn't do it right than I did from the guy who did it right.
That's actually interesting. So a positive and a negative influencer almost.
Yep,
Very,
absolutely.
very cool. Um, how do you think a successful executive develops a winning culture, be it in an organization or even a sports team or whatever?
Great question. I mean, culture is, it's the glue that binds together the organization. So the question is, do you develop it, or does the organization develop it? And I think the way to do it properly, we're going through this transition right now because we're trying to re-engage our culture. We have a fabulous culture here, but it took a little bit of a hit during the downturn, and we're trying to bring it back to life. And one of the questions that was asked of me was, "What do we do?" And the answer was, "What do you think?" Because the culture comes from the people, comes from the ground up. It doesn't start from the top down. You can't dictate culture and then expect that people are going to read it like it's some kind of policy. You have to encourage it. You have to foster it. You have to grow it, and then work with people to get that done.
Yeah, I agree. A lot of trust involved, right?
Absolutely, tremendous amount of trust.
Right. Who do you go to for advice?
I rely a lot on my wife. I think my wife is a very pragmatic thinker, and she often gives me good advice. Um, in the workplace, there are probably two or three people that I network with that I'm very, very close with. I've known for years, and I trust their input. So if I have questions on the HR side, or even just questions about me as a professional, I tend to go to them and get their advice.
Awesome. Anything that keeps you up at night, as they say?
Oh, yeah. Uh, I have this new thing that's happened to me over the course of the last 6 months. I'll just pop up in the middle of the night and I'll have the night sweats and start thinking about things I forgot to do or something that I should have done that I neglected to do because it was part of some other initiative. I think that in today's world, things that keep me up are the cost of medical care um, and the effect that that's having on us financially as a company because we are self-insured. It's finding the right people, making sure that we get the right people in the right positions, especially when you're recruiting for some pretty important strategic spots. And it's keeping my people. making them happy, making them feel like they're part of an important big picture. Those kinds of things tend to rattle me in the middle of the night.
Well, everything's going so fast. There's so many multitasking, speed, everything going on. I don't think any of us are left out of that, actually.
Absolutely.
So, I know you do. So tell me, how do you make a difference out there?
Uh, I think the key to making a difference is to be engaged as much as possible in every facet of the business. You have to know the business. Let's start there. You got to understand the business, how it works, how it operates. I mean, you don't have to know how accounting does general entries. Don't get me wrong, but you need to understand how the business operates. And to understand the business, you got to talk to people. You got to participate in events and meetings, get connected, find out what it is that they do, what their needs are, and help them run their business effectively. That's our role in HR, is to not tell them how to do things, but to be their trusted business partner. And that's how you become a difference maker.
Awesome. Couple more quick ones. We talked about leaders, and you've heard this question before. If there's a leader you've admired, past or present, that you'd like to have dinner or a coffee with, who would that be?
Wow, great question.
We've already had dinner, so you don't have to say me.
It would definitely be Mark Sadovnick.
Right. Okay, go on.
Leader, past or present, even someone that I never met, obviously, somebody
Right.
that I think made a huge difference in the world. I just had this conversation at dinner the other night with my family, and they rattled off names, bam, bam, it was easy, and I sat there and I rattled off names too, and now I can't think of them. I think the answer is, there are two ways to answer for me: personal, professional.
Right.
Personal, I think, would be my grandfather, because I always admired people of that generation who just completely uprooted their lives. And I come from an immigrant family that uprooted and traveled across the ocean on ships that were just filled with disease. Had no place to live, had no job, had no place to go, but got here and made a life for himself. And I just have so much. I just have so much, not only appreciation, because I wouldn't be here today without that, but so much admiration for people that took those kinds of risks. So to me, that would be the personal one. Professionally, I think there's a guy by the name of Daniel Goleman, Goleman. Daniel Goleman wrote a book 20 years ago called Working with Emotional Intelligence. And I have really hung my hat on Daniel Goleman's work for the last 20 years, and it's really helped me see the future. It started then, and it's still in place today, and I still use the same themes, the same concepts, and all of the things that I do today. So I tremendously admire him. I'd love to have dinner with him.
That's actually terrific. I'll have to check that out. Last few questions, kind of one-word answers. Favorite sport?
Baseball.
Favorite movie or TV show, or both?
Movie, Apollo 13. TV show, not so much.
Okay.
Just Apollo 13.
Yeah. Favorite type of music? Or
I'm into, I like all music, everything. But I tend to lean more toward 90s rock and roll. And for that matter, I'm a big Eagles fan. Grew up an Eagles fan. So that generation of music as well. So I've got, I listen to my kids' music too, but it just isn't in for me. So.
Got it. Okay. And last, favorite food?
Unfortunately, Italian food. Unfortunately, because it's just so filling. But I love to cook it and I love to eat it.
Yeah. Shake hands on that. All right. Appreciate your time.
Hey, my pleasure. Thank you.